Gautam Chhaochharia, Head of India Research at UBS Securities, is the first among our guests. Good morning, Gautam. Well, butterflies in the stomach, you think? It could be an upper circuit going by the numbers so far?
Good morning. Again, by the numbers so far it's still too early. But yes, if the numbers are nearer to an NDA majority, then we could have a big move in the market. So we have published or looked at a number which is around 7,800 for Nifty.
Okay.
Circuit would be possibly much higher. So
yeah, I agree. But you think even a 272 would mean that the market could see a significant leg up today?
I would guess so. The reason why we say that is two. One is talking to investors and looking at investors' positioning on which we have been writing. It doesn't look like they are completely positioned into cyclicals or for a proper recovery in India. And secondly, in terms of where the markets would be trading at now, etc., there's still room for markets to go, and markets always do behave beyond fundamentals in the near term. So there's always irrationality, etc. So at current levels also it's broadly fairly valued. Fair valuation would be around 6,900 for Nifty. So it's just around fair value. And if we have a positive outcome, sentiment is positive, then markets do overreact.
Gautam, hi, good morning. Before I come to you, just want to update our viewers on the latest count. 108 seats have been counted, and it's 54 for the BJP and 55 for the NDA leading, and 27 for the UPA.
Our producer is just telling us Rahul Gandhi is trailing in Amethi, so that's very, very important. Gautam, you just heard what Sonia was saying. 55 out of 108, now 58 out of 113 for the NDA. So at every point it is a 51% majority. How will the market open, Gautam?
So if whatever you're saying holds true into the market open, the markets will react positively to that. But market opening, not necessarily you'll see the big move. So it will be kind of a mini roller coaster through the day. So only when we have a much more clearer trend, and more so also for the relevant swing seats, which will have a much more clearer direction about where the NDA ends up. So then only the markets will react in a bigger way.
Gautam, give us a little bit of a bird's eye view on what you think could be the trajectory for this market, say in the next 1 or 2 years. Is there a potential of this market getting completely re-rated because of the formation of a new government? So because of what happens today, do you think that there could be a scope of this market moving into a different orbit altogether?
Yes and no, because there are two conflicting things. One is hope around a new government, and what will continue to sustain that hope and give positivity to markets over the next year or two would be the actual measures taken by the government, whether the government takes short-term approach or actually is looking at long-term measures which will have a positive impact on the economy longer term. And second would be in the near term, you do face problems around inflation, around fiscal, around growth. So those numbers are unlikely to be redeeming or very, very positive. Again, our view or contrarian call is that inflation will come off, but that presumes fiscal consolidation by the government, which is not necessarily good for growth in the near short term. So those two are the conflicting messages. I think in that context, given what you're talking about markets re-rating, what would be important is for the government to stick to all the promises which it has outlined in the economic agenda. Both the parties, and if NDA comes in, it sticks to the BJP agenda of on the various economic agenda measures, reforms, near-term correction measures. So those will be critical for sustaining market sentiment.
Okay, you said that the fair value for this market could be somewhere around that 6,900 level. Your target for the Nifty is somewhere where it's at already. So are you getting a sense that post this euphoria post today's euphoria, the best of the rally is already done for the year?
Not really. So again, when we said it's purely simple fundamentals and based on a scenario of a mild cyclical recovery. But obviously if sentiment improves and that leads to actually corporate investor sentiment also improving, then we could have a mini virtuous cycle. And secondly, what the government does, if it starts delivering on all the promises or all the hopes, then obviously that adds to another layer of valuation support. That's why we have mentioned so more a fair fundamental value of 6,900 and markets possibly touching 7,800 in case of a positive outcome. So a 7,800 kind of level is a more indicative level in a more positive environment. presumed on both an outcome in the election and also government continuing on all the hopes and promises which it has talked about.
Okay, even at this point in time, 170 out of 136 going to the NDA. That means well over a 50% majority. With each step, that majority is being maintained. When are you looking at the 7,800, Gautam? If this trend is extrapolated to end of day?
So it could touch 7,800 in a very, very short term. Whether it touches today or the next week is difficult to say. But it could touch that in the short term because it's not out of his historical trading range. And if investors get optimistic around the new government, then that's something which is easily achievable.
Okay, but what happens at 7,800? Will you sell believing exactly the problems you're saying, sticky infra problems, SEBs are not going to get solvent in a day to buy the power. So at 7,800, profit taking time?
Yeah, it depends actually. So that level absolutely does not necessarily mean you short or sell out. Then you wait for actual government formation and policy making, and then you take a call because these issues are being course corrected even over last 1 year, and one can expect the new government to accelerate that. As I said, the important medium-term policy setting approach that will determine the multiples at which the markets will trade beyond today and next week.
Okay, so now let's talk about some sectors, Gautam. What are the low-hanging fruits that this new government can actually target first up? So, would you be looking at, the oil and gas reforms? Would you be looking at something in the infrastructure? Where do you see the most potential now?
So India has always had a lot of potential, and a lot of the solutions are always talked about among most experts and fairly well known. So I think the important thing is action here rather than just ideas or thoughts. So where the government is able to use its political capital and act forcefully, so that's the challenge for the government. If it can deliver on all the fronts which it talked about, it will be fantastic. But just to break it into two parts, one is continuing what has been happening for last 1 year. So diesel price increase and deregulation, infrastructure debottlenecks. So these are largely administrative stuff, so which should continue and could accelerate also. Beyond this, when you talk about policy stability and clarity, it's been talked about setting up independent regulators, specifically in the resource-heavy industries. So that could be one area of positive reform. And from a medium-term perspective, we've talked about factor market reforms, which is primarily in land and labor. So India has seen a lot of product market reforms over the last 2 decades, but factor market reforms has continued to elude India. And we've seen some attempt to do that in the land space in the new land acquisition bill. But even that has largely been below market or industry expectations because it has not really improved the processes there. So factor market reforms, if the government is able to get its hand around, will be a big positive.